In the coastal town of Millhaven, where pristine beaches met manicured neighborhoods, a simple fishing trip would expose the ugliness hiding beneath polished facades. When Elena Hartwell spotted a Latino father teaching his sons to fish at the public pier, she saw disorder threatening her carefully controlled world. She approached with manufactured concern, fabricated regulations, and summoned backup when her authority was questioned. What Elena didn't realize was that Miguel Herrera was a decorated Marine veteran, trained to remain steady under pressure. When they struck him, he responded with measured force. When they endangered his boys, he gave chase. The entire confrontation was captured by witnesses and spread nationwide. False accusations crumbled against video evidence, and a trial forced the community to confront its buried prejudices. Elena believed she could manipulate the narrative. But this time, truth had cameras rolling. And this time, lies couldn't survive the light. Saturday morning sunlight danced across the wooden planks of Millhaven's public fishing pier as Miguel Herrera helped his twin sons, Diego and Carlos, bait their hooks. The 8-year-olds moved with careful concentration, trying to remember their father's patient instructions about threading the worms properly. Like this, Papa? Diego held up his hook, proud but uncertain. Perfect, Mijo, Miguel replied, adjusting his son's grip on the fishing rod. Now remember what I taught you about casting? Carlos bounced on his toes, eager for his turn. The morning was theirs, no schedules, no obligations, just a father sharing something he'd learned from his own grandfather decades ago. Miguel breathed in the salt air, watching pelicans glide over the gentle waves. These moments felt precious, especially after the chaos of his recent deployment had kept him away for 8 months. The pier stretched into Millhaven Bay, a public space funded by taxpayer dollars and open to all residents. Families dotted the wooden walkway, some fishing, others simply enjoying the ocean breeze. Children laughed as they pointed at dolphins in the distance. It was exactly the kind of peaceful Saturday morning that postcards tried to capture, but not everyone saw peace in the scene. Elena Hartwell descended the beach stairs with purposeful strides, her designer running outfit spotless despite her supposed morning jog. As president of the Millhaven Coastal Preservation Society, she'd appointed herself guardian of the community's standards. Her sharp eyes had spotted the Latino family from her oceanfront home's deck, and something about their presence felt wrong to her sense of order. She approached with a smile that never reached her eyes. Beautiful morning for fishing, she said, her voice carrying false warmth. Miguel glanced up briefly. Yes, it is. I'm Elena, by the way. I coordinate community activities around here. She paused, waiting for some acknowledgement of her importance. When none came, she continued. I don't think I've seen you folks at the pier before. We fish when we can, Miguel replied simply, helping Carlos cast his line. Elena's smile tightened. She wasn't used to being dismissed. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but recreational fishing isn't actually permitted on the north section of the pier anymore. New regulations, we've had some issues with overcrowding and environmental concerns. Miguel looked up then, meeting her gaze directly. Which regulations? The question hung in the air. Elena hadn't expected to be challenged so directly. The city council passed new ordinances last month. I can get you a copy of the paperwork if you'd like, but for now, you'll need to move along. Miguel pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen. Let me check the city's fishing regulations. Oh, I wouldn't trust everything you read online, Elena said quickly. The website isn't always updated with the most recent changes. The phone screen showed Millhaven's official municipal website. Miguel read aloud, fishing permitted on all sections of the public pier, 7 days a week, sunrise to sunset. No permit required for residents. Elena's jaw tightened. She'd been caught in a lie, and they both knew it. Well, sometimes the online information doesn't reflect what's actually enforced, she said, her tone shifting from friendly to sharp. And people like you always seem to find ways around the rules, don't you? The words landed like a physical blow. Miguel's hands stilled on the fishing rod, but his expression remained calm. Diego and Carlos looked between the adults, sensing tension they couldn't quite understand. Boys, why don't you go sit on the bench over there, Miguel said quietly. Take the tackle box. His sons obeyed immediately, gathering their gear with the efficient movements of children accustomed to following their father's calm instructions. They walked 20 feet to a weathered bench, close enough that Miguel could watch them, far enough to be out of immediate range. Elena smiled with ugly satisfaction. Finally. I was trying to be neighborly, but you made this difficult. You approached me with a lie, Miguel said evenly. Then escalated with an insult. I'm not going to react the way you're hoping. But Elena was already pulling out her phone, breathing heavily with manufactured distress. Rick, it's me, she said, her voice suddenly trembling. You need to come to the pier right now. Some man just threatened me. Yes, the fishing pier. He got aggressive when I asked him to follow the rules. I don't know what he might do. Just hurry. Rick Hartwell arrived like a thunderstorm given human form. At 52, he'd spent decades building construction companies through intimidation and volume. His truck screeched into the pier parking lot, and he emerged already shouting before he'd taken 10 steps. "Where is he?" Rick bellowed, his voice carrying across the water. "What did you do to my wife?" Elena pointed at Miguel with theatrical fear. "He threatened me when I politely asked him about fishing permits." Rick stormed across the pier, his heavy boots making the wooden planks vibrate. He had the build of someone who'd worked construction in his younger years and never lost the swagger, even as his muscles had softened into bulk. His face was already red with assumed outrage. "You think you can intimidate women?" Rick shouted, closing the distance between them. "You picked the wrong family to mess with." "Your wife slapped me," Miguel said calmly, not backing down. "I didn't retaliate. I didn't raise my voice. But I won't let anyone hit me and walk away thinking it's acceptable." "Liar." Elena shrieked from behind her husband. "He grabbed my wrist when I tried to walk away." Rick swung without warning, a wild haymaker aimed at Miguel's head. Miguel stepped aside smoothly, and Rick's momentum carried him stumbling forward. The bigger man spun around, furious at missing, and threw another punch. This time Miguel caught Rick's wrist, used his own force against him, and guided him into an awkward sprawl on the pier. "I don't want to hurt you," Miguel said, his voice steady. "This doesn't have to escalate." But Rick was beyond hearing. He scrambled up and rushed forward again, this time managing to grab Miguel around the waist and slam him against the pier's railing. The impact sent a jolt of pain through Miguel's ribs, but he twisted free and created distance before Rick could follow up. "You think you're tough?" Rick snarled, circling now like a predator. "I've been fighting longer than you've been alive." Miguel remained centered, hands ready but not aggressive. Rick charged again, but this time Miguel was ready. A quick sidestep, a controlled countermove, and Rick found himself face down on the pier planks, Miguel's knee on his back and his arm twisted just enough to discourage further resistance. "You came here looking for a fight," Miguel said quietly. "But what you didn't expect is that I've been in real ones, with people who didn't announce their intentions." He released Rick and stepped back. The older man struggled to his feet, breathing hard, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. Elena's eyes darted around the pier, looking for something, anything, to regain control of the situation that had spiraled away from her script. Her gaze landed on Diego and Carlos, still sitting obediently on the bench, watching with wide, frightened eyes. A cruel smile crossed her face, she bent down, fingers closing around a piece of broken concrete that had chipped off the pier's foundation. Without warning, she hurled it toward the bench where the boys sat. The chunk of concrete struck Carlos in the shoulder, sending the 8-year-old tumbling backward with a cry of pain and shock. "Carlos!" Diego screamed, reaching for his brother. Miguel's composure shattered. He spun toward Elena, his face transformed by protective fury, but she was already running. Rick, still catching his breath from their fight, scrambled after his wife toward their truck in the parking lot. "Stay right there, boys," Miguel shouted as he sprinted after the fleeing couple. "I'll be right back." Carlos was crying now, clutching his shoulder where the concrete had struck. Diego knelt beside his brother, trying to comfort him while his own tears fell. Other families on the pier rushed toward the boys, offering help and comfort. Miguel caught up to the Hartwell's truck just as Rick was fumbling with his keys. Without hesitation, Miguel vaulted into the truck bed as the engine roared to life. Rick floored the accelerator, hoping to shake Miguel loose, but the veteran held on grimly. Through the rear window, Miguel could see Elena twisted in her seat, screaming at her husband to drive faster. The truck swerved through Millhaven's residential streets, Rick taking corners too fast, his panic overriding any concern for pedestrians or other drivers. Miguel gripped the truck's sides, his focus locked on one goal, making sure these people couldn't hurt anyone else and disappear. "Pull over," he shouted through the window. "You hit my son." Instead of stopping, Rick accelerated toward the highway on-ramp. Miguel realized that if they reached the freeway, the situation would become deadly. He moved forward in the truck bed, reaching through the sliding rear window to grab the steering wheel. The truck swerved violently, tires screaming against asphalt as Rick fought for control. Elena's screams mixed with the sound of screeching brakes as the vehicle careened off the road and into a shallow drainage ditch. Coming to rest at a steep angle, steam rose from the crumpled hood. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Multiple squad cars arrived simultaneously, officers emerging with the controlled urgency of professionals who'd already heard competing versions of the story over radio calls. Elena climbed out of the truck first, immediately affecting the posture of a victim. Her hair was disheveled, her expensive workout clothes torn from the crash. She stumbled toward the nearest officer with practiced desperation. "Thank God you're here," she sobbed. "He attacked us at the pier, then chased us. He's completely unhinged." Rick limped after his wife, nodding grimly. Guy went crazy over nothing. We tried to get away, but he jumped in our truck. Could have killed us both. The officers looked toward Miguel, who stood calmly beside the damaged vehicle, his clothes dirty but his demeanor controlled. Everything about the scene seemed to support the Hartwell's version: the crashed truck, Elena's tears, Rick's injuries from their earlier fight, but then a teenager approached the officers, holding up his smartphone. "Officers, I was at the pier with my family," the boy said. "I filmed most of what happened." The lead officer took the phone, squinting at the screen. The video was shaky but clear: Elena approaching Miguel, the escalating argument, her slap, Rick's aggressive arrival and wild punches, Miguel's controlled defensive response. Most importantly, it showed Elena throwing the concrete at the 8-year-old boy. "Ma'am," the officer said to Elena, his tone shifting, "this video shows you assaulting a child." Elena's performance faltered. You don't understand the context." "That man was threatening, actually," came another voice, "I got some of it too." A woman approached with her tablet, showing additional footage from a different angle. Then a man with his phone. Within minutes, 3 separate recordings had captured different parts of the confrontation, each one corroborating Miguel's version of events. Elena's tears dried up quickly. Rick looked away from the officers, his jaw clenched in defeat. "Miguel Herrera," Miguel said, extending his hand to the lead officer. "Marine Corps veteran. Those are my sons back at the pier. One of them needs medical attention." Within hours, phone videos from the pier incident were circulating on social media. The footage was grainy but compelling: Elena's unprovoked aggression, Rick's failed attacks, the concrete thrown at a child, Miguel's restrained but effective self-defense. By evening, local news had picked up the story. Elena's identity surfaced quickly. Someone in the community recognized her and revealed her role as president of the Coastal Preservation Society, a position she'd used to file numerous complaints against families of color using the public beaches. The story spread beyond Millhaven. National outlets began calling it a case study in racial profiling and community accountability. Social media users shared the videos with hashtags like #JusticeForMiguel and #MillhavenTruth, but the most damaging revelation came from an unexpected source. Elena's own daughter, Sarah, posted a lengthy statement on her social media accounts: "I've stayed silent for too long while my mother used her position to harass families who didn't look like her version of Millhaven. When she told me she'd handle the situation at the pier today, I didn't know she meant attacking an 8-year-old child. I can't watch this anymore. She cut me off 3 years ago when I married my husband David, who's black, and told me our children wouldn't be welcome at family gatherings. Someone finally stood up to her, and I'm glad the truth is finally coming out." The post was shared thousands of times within hours. The courtroom was packed on the day of Elena's sentencing. She sat at the defense table wearing a conservative navy dress, her lawyer having coached her on projecting remorse. But the evidence against her was overwhelming: multiple video angles, witness testimony, and a pattern of discriminatory behavior going back years. Miguel took the stand wearing his dress blues, the ribbons on his chest speaking to years of service and sacrifice. He testified with the same calm precision he'd shown at the pier. "I took my sons fishing that morning to spend time with them after 8 months deployed overseas," he said. "Elena Hartwell approached us with a lie, escalated with racial insults, physically assaulted me, then threw concrete at my 8-year-old son. If there hadn't been witnesses with cameras, if people hadn't been willing to tell the truth, my boys would have grown up believing that's how the world sees them." He paused, looking directly at Elena. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came for justice. What she did wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a pattern of behavior that could have destroyed my children's faith in their own community." When Carlos took the stand, barely tall enough to see over the witness box, he spoke in a clear, small voice about watching his father remain calm even when adults were being mean to him. "My papa didn't yell or hit anybody," Carlos said. "Even when the lady hurt me with the rock, he just wanted to make sure she couldn't hurt someone else." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. "Guilty on all charges," the foreperson announced. "Assault, battery, child endangerment, filing false police reports, and hate crime enhancements." Elena received 2 years in prison and 5 years probation. Rick was sentenced to 6 months for assault and conspiracy. Both were ordered to pay restitution for Carlos's medical expenses and counseling. The Millhaven incident sparked broader conversations about racial bias in coastal communities. The Coastal Preservation Society dissolved amid revelations of discriminatory enforcement policies. The city council passed new anti-harassment ordinances and created a community inclusion committee. Miguel didn't seek the spotlight that followed. He accepted speaking engagements at police training seminars, sharing his perspective on de-escalation and community relations. He talked about staying calm under pressure, about protecting family while seeking justice through proper channels, but the most meaningful changes happened quietly. Diego and Carlos returned to the pier with their father the following Saturday, joined by dozens of families who wanted to show support. The fishing was excellent that day. The boys each caught their first keeper fish, and Miguel grilled them right there on the beach for an impromptu community gathering. 6 months later, a bronze plaque was installed near the fishing pier. This public space belongs to all members of our community. May it be used with respect, joy, and the understanding that diversity makes us stronger. Miguel read the plaque aloud to his sons on a sunny Saturday morning, their fishing rods ready for another peaceful day on the water. The pier was busy with families of every background, children laughing as they learned to bait hooks, parents sharing stories across cultural lines. "Did we help make this happen, Papa?" Diego asked, pointing to the plaque. "We all did, Mijo," Miguel replied. "By telling the truth and not backing down when someone tried to make us feel like we didn't belong." Carlos, fully recovered from his injuries, tugged on his father's sleeve. "Can we fish now?" "The dolphins are back." Miguel smiled, watching the pods of dolphins playing in the morning surf. "Let's fish, boys. This pier belongs to all of us." The morning was theirs again, peaceful, simple, and exactly as it should be.